Imagine with me, it's the fall theater season and you're just 14 years old. Your alarm goes off at 8 in the morning. It's Saturday, and normally you wouldn't wake up this early, but you have a rehearsal for a production of Guys and Dolls today. You show up to the rehearsal space and the director informs you that today's the day you have to rehearse the kissing scene. You've never kissed anyone before, and you definitely don't want to start now. But the last thing you want to be is difficult or cause problems. So how do you tell the director you don't want to have your first kiss on stage? When it comes to being on set or in rehearsal, whether it be for theater or film, there's a power dynamic. You have your producers, the director, the writers, designers, crew and technicians, costuming and makeup and hair, and the actors are the final piece of that process. But where does safety fit in? Intimacy coordination was established in 2017 in the US when intimacy coordinator Alicia Rodas worked on the set of HBO's The Deuce. The role of an intimacy coordinator is to coordinate set safety, which we'll break down in a second. Now, I want you to think back on every piece of media you've ever seen that includes explicit scenes. For an established example, I'm going to jump to a well-known franchise on this channel and talk about the Twilight films. In the film Breaking Dawn Part 1, for the first time ever, we see the characters Bella and Edward doing the thing. In an interview on Ellen in 2011, Pattinson mentioned how this particular scene had to be edited for too much exposure, and in 2015, while doing a panel at Comic-Con in San Diego, Stewart said this in regards to filming Breaking Dawn Part 2.
How do you have, because we're supposed to have mind-boggling, otherworldly sex. Tried to keep the first one sweet, but in the second one we just wanted it to be animals. You're not humans anymore. It's like, how do you do that? We tried and they told us that it was rated R and we're like.
And in another interview, Robert Pattinson also shared about his experience.
Did it make you guys nervous, just knowing, that this is the moment that everyone's waiting for?
Yeah, no, it was kind of, because normally when you do a love scene, it's just sort of, you're almost less judged than you are in other scenes if you're doing other movies. Because, for one thing, no one really wants to tell you what to do. Everyone's a little bit uncomfortable directing you or whatever. So you're kind of left to your own devices. But on this, me and Kristen kind of knew that everyone who's read the book, and even people who don't even like Twilight, I mean, I would assume a lot of people are kind of just curious, because everyone knows that the series has been about abstinence and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You're trying to think, how can I make this, I don't know, how do you make it sort of spectacular?
So here are some ways an intimacy coordinator could have helped on this set. First off, making sure Pattinson and Stewart were feeling comfortable and secure in rehearsals and on set. A big part of intimacy coordination is being a coordinator, not only between the actors and working as a liaison, but being a middleman between the actors and director. An intimacy coordinator exists as someone meant to keep film set safe, so if an actor has questions or concerns, they can bring those to the intimacy coordinator and they can answer those questions. If it's a question for the director, then the coordinator talks to the director and brings it back to the actor. It creates some distance between the actors and the director. As I mentioned earlier, there's a power dynamic there, and for actors, it can be more comfortable to be more honest with someone who's there to help you in these situations than someone whose role is to focus on a lot more than just safety. And in this way, the intimacy coordinator is especially helpful because they can raise concerns to the director, and it's one less thing a director has to worry about. That's why there are set designers and costume designers, composers, choreographers. All of these different roles fit into the picture to make sure these things get done. As both a director and an actor myself, I can say with firsthand experience that having people to take on these roles is essential. Another big part of intimacy coordination is choreographing these intimate moments, making sure not only are the actors comfortable, but ensuring that everything will read well on camera and fit appropriately into the ratings. They can also coordinate with costumers and make sure that actors are properly covered so that everyone on set is safe. This isn't just about the actors and the director, but the camera operators and boom mics. It's a set and there's people, and it's not only a matter of workplace decorum, but there are laws and boundaries to abide by. And this goes for all film sets and theater rehearsals for intimacy, especially intimacy related to simulation and body exposure is involved. Safety and comfort are really important. Based on these interviews, it's a little sad to think that an intimacy coordinator could have been a huge help behind the scenes. And this isn't to criticize the creative teams behind these projects. I just want to emphasize how new intimacy coordination is because it didn't exist at the time. But just because it's still new doesn't mean this practice hasn't always been necessary. Alright, let's talk about Bridgerton. Bridgerton is one of the biggest shows to come out of Netflix within the past few years, and it's very big on intimacy. The show's intimacy coordinator, Lizzie Talbot, is not only brilliant, but she's also been incredibly open about her work, which is especially valuable in the industry for a role that is still so new. Before taking on intimacy coordination, Talbot's main practice has been in fight choreography, which I have yet to touch on, so let's do that now. Fight choreographers have been an industry staple for both theater and film for a very long time. It started out as a theater practice, and one of the first cited choreographers was Richard Tarleton, a choreographer during the 16th century. The role of a fight choreographer is very similar to that of an intimacy coordinator, just for stage combat. They look out for actor safety, do advocacy work, and they choreograph fight scenes that they look good and believable on stage or on camera. And in an article written by Maddie Ellis for Today, Talbot said, with fight work, you're looking at choreography, you're looking at safety, you're looking at risk management, you're looking at advocacy for the actors. So when it comes to intimacy coordination, she says, it became the same thing. Because the role is still so new, there is a lot of stigma around intimacy coordination and set safety. Not even everyone in the industry supports these practices, so it's not really helped when a new HBO show displays intimacy coordination as something which kills the vibe and disrupts set work. An intimacy coordinator is not a buzzkill. But you know what is dangerous? The people who have problems with intimacy coordination. That is one of the biggest red flags I have ever heard. Seriously. Instead of shaming intimacy coordination, can we focus on shaming the people who are against it? Because without intimacy coordinators, we get exploitation like this. Back in 1968, a film adaptation of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet starring Olivia Hussey and Leonard Whiting was released. At the time of filming, which started in June of 1967, Olivia Hussey had just turned 16 years old, and Leonard Whiting was just turning 17. Both were minors, and that's based off of both Argentinian and English standards. And for good measure, they were also considered minors by Italian standards, which is where the film was primarily made. For those unfamiliar with Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, in the play, the two characters get married and then they must consummate the marriage. According to their personal accounts, at the time of filming, both Hussey and Whiting were allegedly under the impression that despite the existence of this scene, there wouldn't be any exposure. And the decision to not have exposure is one that makes sense, especially for fade to black scenes. It's not like Shakespeare wrote an intimate scene to be enacted on stage. Instead, the actors were told that they would be wearing flesh-colored garments on camera for the morning after moments. So imagine this. You've spent months filming in Italy, one of the biggest projects you could have asked for. A project which would go on to make $38.9 million in the box office and be nominated for 4 Academy Awards. And you're in the final days of filming when the director tells you, if you don't perform exposed, this picture will fail. The actors were then shown the camera angles and how there wouldn't actually be any exposure on camera despite them not wearing undergarments. They did the scene and realized after the fact that they were in fact completely exposed. The damage here is irreparable. Trust, honesty, comfort, all of that is gone. But not only are there psychological damages to consider, there are reportedly monetary ones as well. Both Hussey and Whiting reported that after taking these roles, it was difficult for them to continue to find work. Now, there have been people who have brushed this off because exposure in film certainly wasn't unheard of, but let's break this down. In 1897, the film After the Ball is considered to be one of the earliest films with a simulated exposure scene. But it wasn't until the film A Daughter of the Gods from 1916 that an actress was fully shown exposed on camera. Very controversial. But the actress Annette Kellerman was 30 years old at the time. So just a little over 50 years later, to have 2 children exposed on camera is all kinds of disturbing, not to mention that that exposure was allegedly coerced out of them. And this kind of exploitation is why the work of intimacy coordinators is so valuable. Now I want to take a moment to thank intimacy coordinators for the work that they continue to do to make the arts industry a safe and inclusive place. I asked some friends of mine about their own stories regarding how intimacy coordination has helped them feel safer in both theater and film settings. And for those who haven't worked with intimacy coordinators yet, they said it's really helped in general for establishing boundaries to have a role such as this. And here are some of the things actress Sydney Sweeney has said about working with an intimacy coach on the HBO show Euphoria. And finally, to close out this video, I wanted to quickly mention a really incredible intimacy coordinator, and that's Jessica Steinrock. She makes really great educational content about working as an intimacy coordinator in the film industry, and is working to destigmatize intimacy coordination as a practice. She makes TikToks, but she also has a YouTube channel, and she runs her own company dedicated to training intimacy coordinators. So if that's something that interests you, everything is linked in the description. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a marvelous week and stay safe. See ya!